Shout out to the Italians.
Shout out to like the pizza guys. Oh, I am obsessed with this look.
Little Caesar.
I have something really sensitive and vulnerable to tell you. I'm a dyke.
I've heard.
The
news has spread.
Yes, I am a renowned lesbian of Chicago. So within lesbian fashion, there's obviously the dichotomy between butches and femmes. It is what I'm most attracted to is like, does somebody
own carabiner with the
the galactic size carabiner, the carabiner that has orbital objects around it.
You want the
carabiner that like
that
when you rattles around creates this like a sonic boom that rivals the air of water show. Yes, I'm talking about that dyke fashion. So within lesbian fashion, you obviously have this wide spectrum of butches and femmes. It's for me, fucking own what you're wearing. Again, like with my own individual fashion, I've built up something that is very distinctive. It's like usually multi-layered. It has went from super rainbow to super green, playing around with silhouettes with that. I think I can very easily tell like when somebody knows their body, knows how to present themselves, knows that what they're wearing is kick-ass and awesome, versus somebody who just like throws it together. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. They're just a person with bad taste. I think that's like the most attractive. Like, it's just like, can you own an outfit? Can you look like a main character in a bar? That is what I'm attracted to.
Hey, yo.
Yes.
And this is AP, your favorite dove. Your dove flying so low in these last couple of episodes, but I'm still flying. And I'm coming at you live from occupied Chicago. We are in the precipice of a National Guard takeover, ? Will the taco president not do that? ? Double question mark?
It's still hot as fuck as in October, but there's ice everywhere. It's quite the contrast.
That's right. And I am coming at you with a second mic. Someone, I was told you can't do it. I was told AP can't do it. He can't find another trans person to put on the mic.
But he did it.
I am still out here proving myself as the best ally. Because today I have not a dove, but a clown.
Indeed.
A jester. A trifling harlequin of the organizing space around Chicago. There are so many different pies this clown has a finger in fashion, in sustainability, in getting people together to talk about their experience organizing. This is a jester with an incredibly well-developed calendar routine. I am joined by Lelia Woods.
Hello. Hi, my name's Lelia Woods. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. So quick intro on me is I founded and run the Artistic Alphabet Mafia. We're a local events and mutual aid group. Some notable...
Which is the artistic wing of Antifa.
Yes, absolutely. When they said, hey, the Alphabet Mafia, those conservative commentators like 4 or 5 years ago, they were like, surely the gay people won't actually make a mafia. And I did.
And you proved them wrong.
Yes. I was like, actually, that's quite a terrifying concept. A bunch of gay people who are actually organized and willing to do crime. Just a little bit. So some professional LinkedIn introduction to my organization, which is definitely not a bunch of silly bits in a trench coat. It is a mutual aid and events group focused on providing accessible art spaces to local queer people. What does that tangibly mean? So for our events, we typically provide sliding scale tickets. We have access guides. We also have it all sober focused, so never hosted a bar. Well, actually, one time. I lied. But our votes are non-alcohol focused. And this event group was inspired because I moved to Chicago 4 years ago. I didn't know anyone, and I was recovering from an injury, and that injury prevented me from drinking alcohol.
There was they got splattered with seltzer water from a rival clown.
Yes,
gang.
I was there was a rogue flower spraying. Again, Chicago, you never know what's going to happen. But then I just was inspired by like different communities I've been a part of, both artistic and co-living. And that's where Alphabet Mafia came from. So our core value is silliness, is we want people to be able to be silly at our spaces, and also that like the premises of our events are also silly. So I've literally done a queer kindergarten event where people were playing around with crayons, chalk drawings, bubbles, pipe cleaners. With that, also, we do community projects. So Cubby, which is essentially like a free little library, but by gay people for gay people. And how it works is we work with different local businesses to set up shelves or cubbies that have different letter categories. So currently we have 3 letters. We're going to be announcing more letters next year.
And if you are interested more on that, we have some links at the bottom.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And as you could tell, Leela's a very let's just call it what it is. A juggler with a lot of balls at hand. And that is honestly something I really enjoy about getting to know you. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that we got to know each other is that you made me a model. You were like, hey, good looking. Hey, toots.
Yes, and that exact verbiage.
Yeah, I have the text. I can
okay, for sure. Cite the sources, cite the receipts.
They said, hey, long legs, what you got over there? Why don't you walk out on this runway? And I did. And we are going to talk about runways, and we're going to talk about fashion, because we're going to talk about a handful of different items. But I wanted to have you on the mic to talk about fashion. You know, the last couple of episodes, yes, we've covered public transportation, my bag. Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to talk about my other bag, my handbag, my backpack, my sling, my tote bag. We're going to talk about fashion. And I want to start off by saying something this. What attracts you to fashion?
It's so cool. It's the fact that it's like literally putting together random scraps of fabric into something that is wearable. I mean, I can just do a 1-hour monologue. Fashion is an art form that we interact with every day, and it's also been in our entire history. Is that probably the first forms of art beyond like random like wall drawings were people trying to make coats to be warm. Fashion is a reflection of so many cultures. It is also an art form that sometimes doesn't get the proper credit it's due, because it is often associated with women. But it is.
We like those here.
We are an ally. We're such an ally. I love women too.
Dove Weather's pro women, respectfully.
Amazing. I'm glad we've established that women are valid. However, it's also a art form, as I was talking about. It's an art form that spans the entire spectrum of both high to low class. Is that you can interact with fashion by looking at a $1 million dress at the Met Gala, and you can also interact with fashion by going to Goodwill and picking up a $2 shirt. It is something that you also can't avoid. Unless you're like a full-time nudist, you can't avoid interacting with fashion.
And you better be a full-time nudist in like the most perfect weather on earth, or like a hermetically sealed box.
Yes, and in the year of our Lord 2025, that's going to be hard because also in Chicago, we're dealing with 80-degree weather in October.
It's shorts weather in October. That's normal.
That's very normal. The other thing with fashion is it also interacts with like my work with sustainability. Is fashion is one of the biggest ways that you can interact with like daily practice of being more sustainable, like not buying new clothes, trying to learn intentional mending practices, learning where your dyes and fabrics are sourced from. So I feel like a lot of people actually start engaging with the sustainability movement through fashion first and then expand outwards. It's also a huge source of community for me. Before I was doing Alphabet Mafia, I worked with Chicago Craft Club. A lot of people in that community are textile artists. Yeah. Also, if you make any sort of garment, even once, you gain so much more respect for like even the most like basic t-shirt. It is an incredibly labor intensive process. It's incredibly precise. It requires science, math, also an understanding of technique. So, there's a reason why there are entire podcasts dedicated to fashion itself, because it is a very rich, very extensive art form. And we're going to talk about it today.
There is such a fashion has incredible PR. It's really out here telling people look at me, I'm beautiful, I'm hot, I'm sexy. Oh, look at this beautiful gold inlay I have in this. But deep down, very deep down, it's all just math. You just have to think about math, fractions, area, and you're like, no.
So fashion
I
is
sat down here to make a dress, not do algebra.
Yes. Well, fashion, if it was a person in high school, is the prep girl who's actually a nerd. It's no, I don't read books. I'm hanging out at the bar. But then she's actually super smart, and you don't want to get cross her.
True.
And that's there is a depth to fashion that the more you study it becomes more clear.
That to me sounds like Queen Bee, Beyonce.
Oh yes, Beyonce is a fashion icon. Of the pop hyperstars who are also billionaires, and therefore we have to execute them eventually, Beyonce is a better one.
I will be bleeping that out and replacing that with give her even more money, love and respect.
Love and respect.
Beehive, please. We love women here.
We love women. Here. However, we don't love billionaires. There's a little bit of conundrum there. No, Beyonce, again, a whole podcast in and of itself about how she has utilized fashion to grow her brand. And also within, that's another thing is within pop stardom, if you want to talk about it, is a lot of it is just basically pro wrestling. And what do pro wrestlers need to stand out? A good fucking costume. Sequins too. And that's also something we're going to be talking about today.
Very tight. Around the navel crotch area. Very tight clothing. Very
tight tailored clothing to belt and scream and to perform in front of an audience.
I bring up Beyonce because Beyonce had an outfit made by this fashion designer that we're going to be talking about today, Robert Wun.
Alex, was that a segue?
That's right.
Okay.
This is not a technology podcast, but we got segues here. I have a couple of looks that I kind of want to talk about. And I shared these with you. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about spring, summer 2024 for Robert Wun. This, if you don't know who Robert Wun is, he's a Hong Kong-born fashion designer. He moved to London around 17, 18 to go to school and study. And he has worked in the fashion industry, the high fashion industry, the couture industry, for about 10 years before he put on his first runway shows. And spring, summer is one of the only ones that he's put on. And he brought a fucking brick of gold to Paris Fashion Week, where this was presented. He was actually one of the first people to, one of the first Asian designers to be at the Paris Fashion Week runway like this. So I mean, our man is breaking barriers, and he also has this deep understanding of where this fashion, this inspiration comes from. He talks a lot about his grandmother. He talks a lot about the women in Hong Kong that he grew up around and what it means to bring that energy to fashion, and how he wants to use that as the basis for a variety of his different looks. He talks a lot about feminism, and so many different things that I've heard him speaking. He talks about feminism, and honestly, like I'm not entirely convinced that like it's coming from a place of like radical feminism. You know, feminism.
No, he loves women. He's an ally. But that is, I forget exactly where it's from, but there's a quote where like there are designers who view women as canvases and there are designers who love women. And I think that there is you could just sense it like sometimes when you see fashion shows of like that this is somebody who admires the human/feminine form in a very deep level and wants to demonstrate that.
And many of our listeners do too.
Yes, respectfully, women, very cute, very beautiful.
And
respectfully.
And you know, I did some research on Robert and like what he thought, and you know, at the end of the day, this gentleman's not gonna drop, you know, his favorite line from the last Brumaire of Napoleon. You know, he's not gonna bring out like his thoughts on like Gramsci or anything like that, because that's not really the type of person that lands these types of gigs, these types of work. This is a gentleman that believes in his artwork deeply. And that has been rewarded by being a world famous artist.
Well, I would ask to that statement, why does he have to quote Gramsci? I think that as somebody who works as a visual artist, is one thing is that we are expected to translate our work into verbal mediums. So as an example, it's like David Lynch very famously was like, no, I'm not going to explain my films. They're already made. Is that, you know, you never expect a poet to paint their poems. I think that it is like art should be a self-contained piece and then anything else is extraneous. But I get what you're saying.
You know, the reason why I mention it's for the same reason why this is a regular note that I put on a lot of artists, which is just like, go the extra step. Mm-hmm. Take the extra step. Actually say it. This is if listeners, you know, if you've heard my Eddington podcast, like you would hear me go to the point where I'm just like, why don't you just actually say what you mean, dog? Not in the way that like art is removed, you know, poetry is removed, themes are removed, but in the way where it's like, why, like if you are trying to be political, and Robert Wun's hitting the I'm a feminist line a lot.
Yes.
But I wanted to approach this conversation to just say, he says this a lot, but I don't really know what that means for him in any other way than just he isn't a chauvinist. He isn't like a masculine pervert that is out here, you know, making women feel bad or furthering like the general patriarchal sense of fashion. You know, he's out here doing something a little bit different, which is like nice. It's also like in 2025, well, this was 2024, but like I would kind of like a little bit of more teeth in my commentary any artist.
So this is like the sort of like the eternal conundrum of high fashion, because high fashion is a realm where it takes the craft that was mostly designed and refined through generations by mostly women. We're doing a lot of broad strokes, but if we're just looking at historically speaking, who was making the clothes that people wore? It was typically feminine people. And then it is also now like more masculine focused. Getting like further into it is like Alexander McQueen had a lot of feminist commentary into his work. Probably most famously is that he was inspired by the Irish sex workers of the 19th century and sewed pieces of his hair into his clothes to make commentary about like Irish history and sex worker history. However, also famously, a lot of his models were super skinny to the point where they probably all had some form of eating disorder in order to get to the runway. And he also developed the low-rise gene, which any AFAB person who grew up in the early 2000s like that was potentially a huge source of body dysmorphia is like, I cannot show my belly because these like low-rise jeans are fucking everywhere now. So like, I think that high fashion always has to contend with what it wants to be versus what it has to be versus what it is, in terms of like, it both, like, as like an AFAB person, so many of these dresses are a dream to wear. Like, I would love to be able to wear, like, walk down the Met Gala in a beautiful gown.
Like, we're looking right now.
Yeah, like these are all so stunning.
We have one of the ones that we're talking about here is Blue Valentine. This is a very long evening dress, very dark blue with a veil that becomes a train that just goes on a couple of meters on the back. If you see it in motion, especially this model, the way that this model presents this, it's so beautiful. It's so
the makeup work
ethereal.
too is stunning.
And there's also one very specific piece that says this is art. Can you tell them what this
There
is?
is a sort of, it resembles a majestic sea slug around her neck and down to her arms, and it looks like it's also like an elongated clown collar. This piece almost looks like it is inspired by the work of Iris Van Herpen and the way that they use movement within their textile work.
It's very choral.
It is very choral.
It's very oceanic. I am the ocean, Purity Ring style. I am the ocean. Like in this model who's black has these very bright blue lips behind this veil. And it's incredible work. It's just incredible work.
The artistry of it is so stunning.
Like we have a close up here, right? And like, of course, this model's beautiful, right? Oh, surprise, surprise! The model's beautiful, right?
Hold on, let's see. Oh, also, that it didn't fully absorb like the fabric work and like the way it's like ruffled.
This fabric was probably put on top of one paper and then another one, and then it was like pleated and then released from that. That is the only way that this collar can exist the way it does, and it works. It's incredible.
It's stunning. Also, just like for definitional stuff, is like, what does haute couture mean? It means a level of artistry and precision that is so elevated, is beyond, like, this is not ready to wear. The ready to wear is any clothes that you can buy off a rack, or like even stuff that is super expensive, like thousands of dollars. Like, this is a individual piece that was oftentimes takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours to make.
Yeah. There is no possible way to like make this with a machine. This collar, and even like the veil, very light blue. It creates this very ghostly feeling to the fabric, but not to the look itself. It's so nice.
It's so well constructed, and I think that there were pieces in this runway. I'm thinking specifically about the one with like the gray hat with like where she was like wearing like yoga pants. Like that was kind of the only like definite flop that I saw. But every element comes together in this very flowing way.
Yeah, one thing about the summer spring look is that it's all about the drape.
Yes.
Like, one major theme is the drape in Robert Wun's like show here. And that look that I didn't pull, but the only thing I really have to note is that Robert Wun takes this very specific look and creates two visible angles. Where like your eye goes directly to the face of the model, and then you notice this big hat and this big belt. I don't even know what to describe it as, but like this ruffled belt that extends to the right side, and it creates this vertical line from the bottom of that all the way to the tip of the hat, and it is.
It's almost
nice.
like a cape or a shawl. And I think also one thing that I noted when I was watching the runway show is that oftentimes the backs of the dresses are more compelling than the fronts, like in terms of like the ways he plays with dynamic shapes, he plays with like construction. He does a lot of focus on lacing in his dresses as well.
And the for the listeners at home, if you've never looked into how lace is made, lace is a labor-intensive process. There is no machine way of making lace. You have to take individual rods of string and actually produce it.
I think I was talking about the corset lacing, but yes, also that is another example of like sort of an art form we take for granted, lace, that has thousands of years of history. And it's actually, fun fact, a precursor to modern day crochet, is that the two forms are interlinked.
Yeah. Shout out to the Italians.
Shout out to like the pizza guys. Oh, I am obsessed
Shout
with
out
this
to
look.
Little Caesar.
That little guy is making so many little pizzas. Okay, so we're looking at this wonderful alien horror bird look.
This is called the Black Armored Love.
And this was something that, because it is Halloween season, I want to talk a little bit about, which is the intersection of fashion and horror. So, and also BDSM, because this is very clearly inspired by like Hellraiser, also bondage looks. And I think that like,
I mean, literally, like, for the listener at home, like the look is all black, and there's very specifically a long V at the chest, and right where the nipples are, there are like two hoops that are connected to by a leather strap to the arms. I mean, it's kinky, and it's
it
also
is kinky. Yes,
it's also incredibly goth.
it's so good. Well, I mean, like this, like again, these are perceived as very separate worlds: the world of horror costume, and the world of high fashion, and the world of kink. But sort of like, to use a framework of Hellraiser, because I think that's a film series that sort of talks about it most, that's in the popular consciousness, is like the intersection of pain and pleasure. Is you are both like, this runway model is probably so stressed and so exhausted, but she is able to create this sense of beauty through this kink inspired thing. And that is also like a big concept of kink, is like how to find pleasure and pain. And then also that is horror as well, is that people love watching these movies that contain gory, disgusting, terrifying things. But like through that, there is a community and a sense of enjoyment.
Yeah, I think I when you see this, you see horror, right? And I mean, I see that in the sense that it's black, right? It especially in this image, it has a red vignetted background. It's kind of a spooky thing. But when I see this, my first thought is this is clearly based around, well, horses, around like equestrianism. Let me point something out right here. So you can see right here, part of this look is a mask. And so this mask has like eye holes. And the eye holes are very much inspired by horse blinders. When you have a horse, one way of like maintaining their like equilibrium is by putting material around the eyes, so their vision, because it's a very widespread vision, is reduced. And so that becomes a motif in the look, around the look. And so that's why I also see this like use of rings as a notation of that, like of equestrianism. And even down here, you could see this motif of the eye holes, the blinders, or around the hip area. They create this like space, and it's effectively a very large version of the blinder.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick about that is like other worlds that sort of intersect a lot that we don't talk about is fashion and sort of physical activity. So I think there, especially with like the most recent Olympics, which were, I think, very fashion forward. If we look at like, for instance, in Mongolian team, they were wearing these like high fashion outfits that were inspired by the culture.
Very beautiful.
Very gorgeous. But all throughout fashion history, fashion is influenced by warfare, workwear, and sportswear pretty consistently. And you see this more with menswear. But for instance, the shift over, because I also, another gesture hat I wear is I sometimes study sword fighting, is the transition from the long sword and to the fencing sword also meant that full plate armor was no longer as necessary for engaging in combat. That also influenced what people were wearing in the court. Within workwear, you're looking at how much Carhartt has inspired American men's fashion. Is that even if you're not wearing Carhartt, you're wearing something that is inspired by Carhartt. Whether it is a jacket or jeans. Jeans are also a major, majorly influenced by obviously like the need to wear something durable and sustainable while you're out and about. And then with sportswear is that you're looking at, especially in the last, I think, 2 decades, how common and everyday athleisure has become an everyday wear. So people tend to wear yoga pants a lot more. People tend to wear sports bras a lot more often. It has become a part of the wardrobe because athleticism has become also part of the everyday conversation.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? You know, this is a materialist podcast, so of course, the material needs influence the outcome. So when you are working down on a mine, or a deep old stinky mine in the Appalachians, or out in the American West, you need something rugged. You need something that's durable. And denim, specifically cotton, also cotton denim, is useful in that space because one, it won't catch on fire. Cotton does not burn like other textiles. Denim is also, because the United States is such a like cotton heavy producer, famously, the whole slavery stuff, they had cotton. They needed something that wouldn't burn, that wouldn't catch fire, and they needed something that was durable. So, of course, the denim became a useful garment for miners down in a deep old mine. And that has like moved on. That has spread out. Denim is no longer just for the miner. It's also for the rocker. It's for the punk rocker. It's for the mom who just kind of wants to wear some form-fitting clothes, and that also like influences the evolution of it. Now we have like stretchy denim, 4-way stretch denim, a little bit of polyester in that cotton to give
just a little bit to spice it up. That is one interesting thing about fashion as well, is that you're looking, like probably one of the more famous monologues about fashion is from the classic, iconic Devil Wears Prada. Miranda Priestly is talking about the concept of how high fashion descends down into these bargain bin, the fact that like this, she's wearing this very particular type of blue was determined by people in this room. It flows both ways. It is like both high fashion does that in the previous example of like Alexander McQueen determining the low-rise jean and therefore like how an entire generation viewed their bodies, but also that it flows upwards. It's that jeans become high fashion over time. You also see that with streetwear and how that has influenced, especially I think since the 1990s, how high fashion handles modern trends. That the benefit of having an art form that seemingly is, again, like the popular girl that doesn't have any deep thoughts, but is actually deeply, deeply political. So you see how these ideas flow up and down classes, and the way that the craft is formed around that.
This is a conversation that's existed for a long time, and I really appreciate you bringing up the Devils Wear Prada, because that monologue really showcases something that I kind of have grown to hate a lot in the last 5 years, which is like the concept of elite capture. You know, it's did that blue exist and then it trickled down to the common person to be worn, and therefore it's out of style. It's out of fashion. No, it's no longer. It's no longer the thing that the polite society uses. You know, the capitalist class uses, and it's not the case. You know, the concept of elite capture, of course, would want you to say, "Hey, yeah, we at the very top say what goes and what's good and what is fashionable and what you should mirror." You lowly peasant, you lumpen street wearer, and it's not the case. You talk about this two-way street, you know, and that's actually honestly why I wanted to talk about this piece, this Black Armored Love, and why I talk about equestrianism and how this, to me, is clearly inspired by equestrianism, which is a very expensive sport to be in. Usually only tied up with the moneyed class. And this, to me, also is an example of like elite replication. A lot of the clothes that we see here in haute couture, yeah, maybe they're trying to like put something down and say, this is the next new look, this is what you should mirror. But it's also a reflection, an internal reflection of the culture that produces haute couture, and says, hey, you know this, you know the language of equestrianism, and the fact that like I use that to produce a look that is a little spooky, that it's sexy, a little Halloweeny. You know this, you have experienced this. You can tell that this ring, is it a kink ring, or is it the type of ring that goes around the harness of a horse, is you know, jowl, so you can control it. And to me, that is something so interesting about haute couture.
It is. And I also think like to use a very recent example of like how ideas flow upwards as well as downwards is like also to talk about the dykes. Because we haven't mentioned them in a hot second, is Chappell Roan. I have been able to predict what Chappell Roan is going to wear on her concert series because her team is on the same Pinterest boards as high school me. Like I like literally I was texting my friends like she's going to recreate this bat look, and then she did. It is like all Chappell Roan is making the outfits of the Tumblr girlies, like if we had on unlimited budgets. So it's very interesting to see that this person who started off like sort of like DIYing and sewing a lot of her clothes, like the Femininomenon jacket, I believe she sewed herself, taking that DIY culture that especially popped up around 2020 in the pandemic, and then having access to those resources where she can say, yes, I would love to have a 3-tier burlesque outfit that is a moth, which is what I would do. And all my lesbian friends would do as well. Is like, these ideas that have fermented, and I can tell you have been around for easily a decade, and are also like inspired by these fashion plates that typically come from like the 1920s and 19th century, have now become mainstream because there is someone who had access to that culture that now has access to high culture.
Yeah, someone who becomes the it girl, the moment, the face of the current status of pop. And also someone who had this very famous scream at like the VIP section. Where it was like, "You're no fun," you know. And it's nice because Chappell Roan, her history is very much of, well, our oeuvre, of the people in our space, the people that did grow up with Tumblr and Pinterest, the people that like see these nice things and want to elevate them to like theater, to presentation, to drama, and I like that.
The theatricality is very real. Fun fact also, I recently found out that somebody I hired and worked with did the animations for the most recent Chappell Roan tour. And so that's like
Nice.
literally, I know that this is like, they're on the same Pinterest boards and they're inspired by the same things that like I've been artistically inspired by. But yes, it is like, I think that is a key to her relatability. I do think that relatability has already eroded because when you have access to those resources, like you become more distant. So I think she's done the best possible version was like leaning into theatricality. I would much rather, like, I've often taught that like the Met Gala should be the Hunger Games for rich people. Like, if you do not dress up to the Met Gala in tens, then you should not have access to the wealth that you do, and like you should immediately donate it to like all these different communities. By which is me, like the only reasonable argument I think for opulence is to create a level of artistry that would be inaccessible otherwise. So I think that she's doing, good work with that. But I also think that, prediction corner, because I also called that bat look, is that I think that within the next year or so, you're going to see her fashion influence and the artistry diminish somewhat because she no longer has that access to like that DIY culture that she's drawing inspiration from.
Yeah, I would say I feel the same way, but mainly because the crumbling United States.
Yes, absolutely. That is part of it. It's like, I think like I am a big proponent of the idea that bad aesthetics is also a moral failure. A shitty burger is also a fuck up morally. It's like you should.
And as so Americans, we cannot forgive a bad burger.
We can never forgive a bad burger. It's like one of the original sins. Like actually, Eden was eating the double cheeseburger instead of an apple. But that the reason why they're, despite wanting to have a much more egalitarian culture and a much more like equal culture, there's still a part of me that like loves looking at Robert Wun, even though I know it's so elitist. Is like that this is like the one chance to see like something of this caliber. However, if you are somebody who has access to this caliber and shows up to the Met Gala in a black suit, you deserve horrors untold. It was just like I say, like I think that there was like the way that I sort of engage with morality sometimes is you could have made something beautiful with all these things you've stolen and you chose not to, and that adds to all the like depravity you've engaged with.
I mean, if you're already like spending $250,000, per seat to just go to the Met Gala, which is one of the most exclusive parties in the world to get at, get a guy that makes something good.
Get like literally an Etsy witch, because
get a
Etsy witches
heterosexual man.
Like Etsy witches have turned out to be the most powerful force of 2025. Like they were literally the Mariners. They're being controlled by the Etsy witches, and the Etsy witches are real. I don't know if you've heard about this at all.
I know about online witches. I have multiple online witches.
No. There is a trend of Etsy witches who are doing spell work, and apparently that's allowing the Mariners to actually win for the first time.
Well, I mean, that's good.
That's valid. I don't care about sports, but I'm so glad that Etsy witches were able to do that.
This podcast is pro-lesbian, anti-sport, though.
We're pro sport,
which is like,
but just like keep your lifestyle at home. Like keep it to the indoor gyms, please. Don't go throwing your basketballs around in the neighborhood.
Like what? Why are you playing baseball outside where kids could be watching?
Yes, absolutely. Also, golf. We could have a whole rant about golf. Golf should not exist.
One of the, I think about Robert Wun, and it's some of the interviews that I saw, like he makes this declaration that other designers would just kind of come up with a sketch, an idea, and then, the people working there in his studio just go out and actually start doing the manufacturing. And he says that he doesn't do that. He is in there doing the actual work along with his studio. And I like that. I like that because none of these pieces could exist because only two hands created them. Even down to the textiles needed to produce this. Someone somewhere along the chain had to put in so much effort to make an incredible outfit, an incredible piece of fabric that can create an incredible piece of an incredible look. And I like that. One narrative that is lost in all of this haute couture stuff is how it shows that no one pair of hands can produce this majestic work.
No, absolutely not. I can tell you, like, if you, again, make any garment, even just like a simple embroidery project, and you will realize the scale of this work is absolutely astounding. And I think that, like, also Robert Wun is, just looking at his work, very much inspired by 90s Mugler, who, like, also was very inspired by BDSM work and like horror and nature. Is just also Terry Mugler was somebody who was deeply passionate about being involved in the process and being like the person who sketched things and working with the models and also representing a variety of models in his runway shows in a way that a lot of designers of his time did not do. Like, he would show people who were older on his runway, people who had disabilities on the runway, like showing a more expansive vision of what the human body could be featured as.
Yeah, and I mean that's lost in this runway shows, but it's like not everything could be everything, right? And like, so I like seeing what Robert Wun like talks about, in so many of the interviews that he has in different shows. It's all kind of just like fashion bro-y guys, not folks that are like super interested in the individual craftsmanship and all of this. And I see this piece called The Innocence, which is my favorite piece.
And also the template for his most recent show, which was very body horror inspired. And I don't think we're going to be having a chance to talk about that today, but taking this concept of like limbs and bodies and expanding out to an entire collection.
Yeah. And this look called The Innocence is a red dress with a sash on top. And in the back, there is a figure, and a sexless, featureless human figure that is creeping one arm across the left side of the body and covers up kind of the chest area. And then the right hand of this figure is kind of grabbing the string that would hold up the dress and lightly putting it off. And the way that the model holds this, presents this, she's not presented in a kind of like horror way where like abuse is happening or a statement of like, oh, what about all the violence that exists within this haute couture? She's presenting it almost as like, I am this. This figure behind me is also me.
Like the shadow self.
Yeah, I control the beauty within me and without me.
So like what comes to mind when I look at this piece is I do not know the exact origin of this motif. And I think it might be Schiaparelli. And if I had to guess, it would be Schiaparelli. But the concept of hands groping, like textile hands groping like the breast or like private areas of a woman. You see that with like Lady Gaga and her art pop era. I also believe that Madonna did this for a bit. Is like there's a very like gloves, like hand silhouettes on someone's boobs, and like just like the idea of something wearing and sort of like this concept of like the art taking over the body a little bit. And this one feels in like continuity and in dialogue with those like very famous pieces of like popular fashion. of how does fashion interact with the human body, specifically the feminine body, and what kind of like, is it something that is empowering or is it something that is exploitative? And is it like something that is featuring or is it something that is hiding?
I think this looks empowering to me.
It does look inspiring because it is drawing attention to that sort of history of like hands as, or like hands and bodies. And it is also not like you're not wearing to the club to look hot. This is a very much like a pointed commentary. And I also think that like it is not as explicitly sexual as those previous pieces. And you can still make an argument for those pieces being still empowering, like absolutely. But just pointing out that like this is
central.
This is central.
This is central. Even in the back of the dress, it kind of splits open, and that is where the figure is kind of sprouting from this model. And normally when you see like a wide open back like that that's split open, you might start thinking, yeah, exploitation. But the way that this is all built out, and it keeps with the drapery of the theme, one of the themes in this show, and also the way that it is all monochrome red in the motif of the hands. So there's other pieces throughout his different runway shows that hands pop up a lot. And it just makes this beautiful look, very stunning look. And also the kind of nerd in me is like, this is just a JoJo stan.
It is just a JoJo stand. And that's also another thing that has creeped into the fashion mainstream again. It's like a world where it's almost like the realm of the Olympians is like anime fashion. This is a whole other tangent. Is like, so Sailor Moon, a lot of the villains in that show were inspired by Mugler, inspired by Chanel. And then, again, 30 years on, this whole cycle of popular culture, you're starting to see direct references on the Met Gala to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I believe the previous Met Gala had like this heart-shaped silhouette. You know, who's the character who has like the heart cut out in JoJo?
The heart motif is found across all of the JoJos.
Okay,
but,
gotcha.
I think that would be Josuke.
Okay.
Josuke,
so
Couture.
In this, specifically, like this was a Met Gala that I think was a lot more successful than previous Met Galas, which were honestly fairly mediocre, is the intersection of the dapper African-American history as well as anime history all coming into the center stage. The flow of ideas, even in this like very like what is seen as like sort of like a bubble of high fashion, it always enters and it is always transformed and it always comes back, flowing back and forth.
Although we think of the up and down, the transitional trend nature of fashion, you can also say it's dialectical. When the people up top, the capitalist class, holds onto an image, and then technology and the retail space catches up to replicate that image to anyone that wants it. There is a need, an internal need for someone with all the resources available to them that wants to look good and wants to look different, for them to look somewhere else, to find new inspiration so they don't look like everyone else. So it might be a trend, right? It might be a trend, but I also see it as this way where the rich need to differentiate themselves from the poor. And I think about, we're talking a lot about the 90s. One thing that happened in the 80s and 90s is hip hop culture grew to what we know now. And a lot of that came through the actual experience of the black rappers creating this new image, this culture, this experience. And one of those is the baggy pants. Baggy pants exist in the mind of a whole bunch of different people. And in the 2000s, the image of a baggy pants dominated racists' minds. I remember because I was there. I was there. And one of the things is that the baggy pants didn't just come about because one day some guy was like, you know what? What if I just show a little bit of my Calvin Kleins? What if I just show a little bit of my Fruit of the Looms? No, it came from the experience of being incarcerated and having less access to your regular items of fashion, one of them being a belt. You can't have a belt in prison because that could be used, well, to kill yourself or to kill someone else, right? And so what happens is your pants sag a little bit more. And that actual experience informed the look of the look of the culture. And if you're interested more, read about Chuck D. Read anything by Chuck D. And he explains it further. I also think about, like, if we use the exact same but make it Latino. One of the reasons why in the general image of what a cholo looks like, what like a Latino West Coast SoCal gangster looks like, is someone with shorts, jean shorts, or any type of short, and socks way the fuck up, like way up there, like going up to the knee, and that comes directly from the same type of like cultural space of a prison, of incarceration, where you want to be a little cooler in the sun, so you might either rip up your pants or wear shorts, but you can't show skin. You can't show there's culture in prisons where you don't show skin due to homophobia. But that is kind of the place where homophobia, like bubbles to its worst. So that also influences the outside space. And of course, is there now like, it's like haute couture using the cholo look in their dress and in their outfit? Normally, I would say no. But this year, we have the rise of Willy Chavarria, who is an LA-based designer who has brought this kind of look to the global stage, and it's very interesting too, because that just shows this replication of, once again, you have the rich moneyed class that needs a new way of looking.
Well, I think that I would put it into two, like, to jump in real quick, is there is the nouveau riche and then there's the old rich, and then those two classes of rich people treat fashion very differently. So within the nouveau riche, you're talking about people who are like the flashy stars. They absolutely take from those trends and replicate them into high fashion, because it's part of like, how can I look like a JoJo hyper pop superstar wizard? Like, you're trying to look like inhumanly, not glamorous, but gaudy, to show off the wealth. And then also, like, that's often like why you have these exaggerated trends that come from oftentimes working in poor classes. With the old rich, the goal of fashion is to be, and using very broad generalizations, but to be sophisticated and subdued, to not show like your full deck of cards. Like Warren Buffett is not wearing like a clown collar. He's wearing a suit. But that suit is, someone who studies fashion could tell you like the thread count and the craftsmanship. It's like, it's not just a suit, it's something else. And that's a very important part of like that. Old money fashion is wearing a white t-shirt that is $900, is finding a way to like, that you have to be able to see the difference because you have money. Whereas the nouveau riche is trying to take the trends and trying to appeal to the working class, but like in an exaggerated way. So like these two languages of like, I'm trying not to show my full deck of cards. I'm trying to show like 3 decks of cards at the same time.
You know, that's interesting to me. You know, because what you're telling me, honestly, it still sounds like elite replication.
It absolutely is.
Because part of, we talked a little bit about jeans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeans used to be workwear. They had functionality. And in the mid-century, the look of the elite, is very specifically the East Coast elite, was the prep, was the trouser, was the Oxford shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And only after some bigger changes in society, the jeans came to be worn just with everyone, everywhere. There's this look of the jean that actually exists both in the space of the hippie, mm-hmm. the space of the motorcyclist, and also in like the hot, sexy guy, mm-hmm. the model with, any Calvin Klein, commercial. There might be some pants that come down, and those are probably jeans.
Yes.
And I even think about the 90s in England. There was this big push of like the jean pant being a kind of an expression of that nouveau riche,
yes.
know? And the biggest example of that is Jeremy Clarkson. Mm-hmm. If you know Jeremy Clarkson, he's
everyone's least favorite dad.
Yeah, he's the presenter for Top Gear. He also loved to punch a guy for a steak that was late.
He is like a human 5-year-old chicken nugget that somebody left in their freezer.
And he wears blue jeans to describe himself as this kind of like connection to the American.
He's a working class guy. Yeah.
Well, that's the image that he presents. But like in the 90s, the jean became an example of like money, just money. I got money over here in England, and I just find it interesting. Mm-hmm. And I one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is about fashion is that I kind of don't like fashion being a domain where the rich have this outsized understanding of what should be worn.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that there are...
It currently is, though.
Yes. And...
Like we talk about the Met Gala. Every single year, there is this exercise of like just random ass people, like literally people outside of the culture, being like, oh, what is the look? What is the good look in the Met Gala? And honestly, who gives a shit? But to me, what I want is someone to be expressive, and I want the people to make that shit to be well paid, and I want them to have vacation time and healthcare.
Yes, hell yeah to all that. What I will say is, yes, the Met Gala is the forefront of fashion. However,
fashion conversation.
But even then, so as an example, Hank Green really recently got a whole lot of flack for fucking up knitting. For some transparency, is I know sewing, I do not know knitting, and I don't know crochet, so I am not going to speak to that conversation directly. However, I'm going to say this. Within the last couple of years, as somebody who got their start organizing within craft spaces and has built a lot of my community around crafting, both personally, like creating like craft, like individual, like homie hangs with crafting, and also like larger craft events, is I think that the way that people have everyday dialogues around fashion is, what am I making? What am I designing? I'm like making this shirt for my partner. I found this cool shirt at a thrift store and I'm going to hem it. I think that the everyday conversation beyond the Met Gala is, how can I reclaim clothes so they are mine?
Yes.
And I think that also one thing that has impacted that community a lot is the closure of Joann's, which was a big corporation and, did a same thing with any major corporation engaged in a lot of forms of exploitation, but also was like a way that people could build community, especially if you're not in a major area. So I think that now the conversation is like, how can I still access textile art with this store that I used as my main entry point. And that is still an ongoing conversation because it is like just happened within the year. So I think that you also like within another conversation that is happening on a pretty consistent basis is like, what is the nature of sustainable fashion? Because it is one thing to say sustainable fashion is this very like, the type, like brown linen pants that on the website, they have photos of the factory and they're all smiling and it's not like other fashion brands. But honestly, the most accessible and also the most successful form of sustainable fashion is used fashion and repurposed fashion and taking fashion that is from the working class and reclaiming it for everyone is, and there's a whole other conversation about resellers, which I think for the most part has less legs than people want to give it. But the point being is, yes, Met Gala is the loudest conversation, but it's not the conversation people are having every day about the clothes they wear and the clothes that they want to make and the clothes that they want to exchange with people. And I think that I can't speak for everyone, but basically everyone I know, the majority of their closet at this point is from a thrift store or from a repurposed, like from a clothing swap or from a vintage store. It is now fairly rare for like people to buy fully new clothes.
I think there's a lot to that too. I also think that's why I don't really want to like haute couture exists, right? It will continue to exist. Mm-hmm. I actually want this level of like beauty to exist. And what I want to do though is kind of separate it from the need for it to be connected to the rich.
Yes.
I just want it to be an art form.
So going back to like the Chappell Roan conversation is like in her community, I can tell you right now, so you just gave like 15 of her random ass fans, like like $1,000 each to make a gorgeous outfit. I can tell you right now, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the within, because she comes from that community and that community is what supports her, is like the artistry would still exist even if like that elitism did. And also like you can look at that because like the entire human history of textile art, including the textile art that was made before there was this extreme class stratification, is still gorgeous to look at. And because it is fundamentally an art form that is built to take care of yourself and to take care of others. It's like, what is more beautiful than a handmade sweater from a close friend or family member? Very few things in this world. So the artistry, I think, would exist without these like pomp and circumstance. And I think it will continue when the pomp and circumstance eventually subsides because this is not sustainable. But I also think that like designers are like storytellers, and they are also oftentimes like really compelling storytellers. I'm thinking about how Kuo Pei integrates fairy tales into her work, or Mugler and integrating queer culture and nature and BDSM. Tom Brown like reconstructing and deconstructing menswear, and also Robert Wun, which like in addition to the feminism angle, is like also takes bodies and also distressing and seeing how they can be repurposed into beauty. That these people are telling beautiful stories that deserve to be told. It's just like, how can they exist within a larger, more sustainable framework? And to just like kind of wrap up my point, I think that there's this really cool video where this team of people take a haute couture piece that would have otherwise been completely archived, and these 3D designers like find ways to redesign it and repurpose it using no new textiles, just the piece itself and how it can be transformed. And that goes back to a tradition of, when we look at older fashion trends, we're not looking at completely new pieces of clothing, usually speaking. If you look throughout the 19th century, you see like changes in silhouettes. That change in silhouette was like the same dress that was tailored and changed to fit new trends. And I think that's where probably like high fashion, as like there's more and more of a drive for sustainable fashion, will lead. Is like they're taking older pieces and repurposing them or adding to them and not taking things from literal whole cloth.
I think so. I think that is a beautiful image. We are getting closer to a time where people need to take big changes, big radical changes. Then, in the fact that we have millions of unused pieces of clothing that can be repurposed, maybe, and maybe not to the way that the originators wanted, but maybe for the sake of our world and for the way that we exist, that will continue to produce art and beautiful art. And we need more space and more time and more people and more funding to free up the millions of people that would want to do this kind of work. And that will continue to sprout people making this beautiful art. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you
For meeting with me and having a conversation about
Let's
art,
go.
fashion.
And if you want to engage locally with this conversation, I can plug a really cool organization called Conscious Costume that does regular costume swaps, as well as doing archiving work of higher fashion. And you should absolutely support their work if you can.
And if people want to find you, support
yes.
you,
If people want to find me, well, I'm typically roaming the streets of Chicago causing chaos, but online. You can follow me at the Artistic Alphabet Mafia on Instagram. And we also have a website called carecubby.net.
And those are linked below.
Let's go.
Leela, it's been a pleasure to chat with you.
It's been a pleasure as well.
There is so much to learn about just the common garment.
Yes.
And I had a great time talking to you. We are in Chicago, and things might get creepier and weirder and harder, and we're gonna continue to show up and give people coming into this city and ruining it with their ugly looks. That's right, tactical camo, fucked up, ugly,
Fugly stuff.
and you can find me and Marcy in this podcast at Dove Weather everywhere on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Larry Ellison's TikTok. You can find us there, all at Dove Weather. Marcy is doing well, and she sends her love. Bye-bye.